say he was coming.
Yeah, I talked to him today. I don't see Seth here. Do you see Seth? I don't see Seth. Here we go. You.
Thank you.
I called him and told him. Because I didn't get a chance to go home. I usually bring him from home, but I didn't go home. Dave, you want one?
Yeah.
Frank. Frank,
Do they have this here yet?
No. Gotta get that. Hold on.
Want some water, Mike? Tie straight, you look good.
I can pass it out right now if you want to. It's the first item. No? Come on. Kev, I go out. I can start talking about this. Do you want it? I'll pass it on this side. You can pass it on that side. Yeah. And then, do you want to go with Josh now? Josh, when we pass them out or later?
Once you pass it out here, it's public anyway.
Yeah.
So you can get it from you tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyone can get it.
Yeah. No, I knew that.
Yeah. We'll give it a yes.
All right. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the School Finance Review Commission meeting, Thursday, November 1st, 2018. If the clerk could call the roll.
Chairman DiMaria.
Present.
Vice Chairman Demas. Member Hanlon. Member DePiero.
Present.
Member McKinnon. Member Ela.
Here.
Member Parker.
Here.
Member Mejia.
Here.
Member Mareshi.
Here.
Member Easy. Member Forrestier.
Here.
Member Obremski.
Here.
And Member Auger.
They don't have to.
You have 10 members present, 1 absent. You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
10 members present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. We stand and salute the flag. The clerk could read the first item.
Item number 1, Mr. Chairman, is to have the school administration provide other school-related expenditure information, including but not limited to the Devon School Special Education.
Mr. Abramsky?
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also call up the Director of Special Education, Mr. William Donahue, to help us with the Devon School presentation.
Motion made to invite Mr. Donahue up. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Mr. Donahue? Good evening, Mr. Donahue. Nice to see you. Thank you.
How you doing? Make sure.
As you can see from the information that I passed out to you, that's the list of the students who presently attend the Devon School with their disabilities, the cost of what we estimated would cost to send the students out of district, the cost of the transportation, and the grade level that they're in. If you turn to the next page, that has the bulk of the information on the costs. And if you look at presently, if we had to send all these students out of district, we estimate the cost would be about $4.3 million, or $4,276,350, not including transportation. We estimate that transportation would be a little bit over $2 million, for a total cost, if we did not have the Devon School, of $6,282,450. And that wouldn't allow us, we do tuition in some kids right now. Right now, we have a total of 72 students at the school, and we tuition in 7, and we charge those communities $35,000 apiece for the tuition. So we're bringing in $245,000 to the school department. And we would lose that if we didn't have the Devon School. So that makes the total cost of, if we did not have the Devons and loss of money, $6,527,450. Then you can see our present expenses there, down the bottom. We have the gas and the heat at a little over $14,000, electricity $39,000. The rent right now is $453,000, and we also have a triple net lease for $102,000, with the total cost $2,903,450, which means if we do not have the Devon School, the added expense to the school department in the city on the transportation side, the total would be $3,624,044.70. Now, that fluctuates. We have students who come and go. Our average over the last few years have been about 65 students. We're in our 6th year at the Devon School. It's been a wonderful program that, at the time, Mrs. Kelly, the Director of Special Education, and Mr. Forrester began. And Dr. Wallace has been the principal since the opening. He's here in the audience. He's done a great job down there. And I don't know if anyone has any questions that myself or Mr. Donahue could answer at this time. But right now, we estimate the cost savings by having the Devons at a little over $3.6 million.
I know I have a question. Mr. Ramsky, so this is all the grades included here, right?
That's correct.
So all the grades, with those, some of these kids aren't at the Devons, though? They're at the our own
No,
school?
all those students are at the Devon School right now. The
Oh,
Devon
even the
School is K
sixth
through
grade?
12. K through 12.
Thank you. The rent is alarming. That's not something we should resolve sooner than later.
It's $500,000 a year.
Yeah. That would help with the, you not having to pay that out of your account.
Yeah,
and
if we didn't
own the
have to
building-
pay that in the taxes out of our account, it'd come to about $550,000 per year savings to the school department, just between those two.
So any other questions on this?
What's the cost to staff this building, Mr. Brimfield?
2.9 million. It's there.
The
2.9.
salaries, including the health benefits, Dr. Ease, are in the middle column there, the third from the bottom. The salaries, including the health benefit, are a little bit over $2 million, $2,013,362.45. That includes custodians, everybody that works there, the paraprofessionals, secretary, teachers, everybody.
I think after seeing this, I think we need to look at the assessed value of the building and see if it's worth us to own the building. I think we need to further that along. Mr. Parker?
So, along with the rent and the property tax, I just wanted to point out that if all these students were placed outside a district, the tuition would be $2 million.
Right.
We're paying $110,000 to transport these students within the same community, so there's a vast savings right there, almost, what, 1.89 or something? So that's really one of the drivers to it. I think transport, if you remember Dr. Baldessari's presentation earlier.
Frank, I can't hear you, and I'm sure no one else can.
It's on. I think Dr. Baldessari's presentation earlier this year, it averages about $100 a day out of district and $25 a day.
Yeah.
So it's a huge savings.
Leo McKinnon has arrived.
Any other questions regarding the presentation of Devon School? Councilman DePiero.
Do we have any idea, Mr. Mayor, what that building's valued at? What it would potentially cost if we were to go that route?
I'm sure it's be less of a payment of $600,000 a year to own it. So, Mr. Demus, you want to answer that question?
Sure, but without specifics, we're actually in the process of reviewing that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
I just want to point out that Councilman DePiero serves on the Devon's Board of Directors.
Thank you.
Great job.
Any further questions regarding item number 1? Entertain a motion that
Mr.
refer...
Chairman, I just want to reiterate the fact that the school is a big savings to the school department and to the community.
Agreed. I'll entertain a motion that we refer item 1 to the mayor's office.
Second.
Okay, motion made, second, refer to the mayor's office. All ayes?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, if you can read item number 2. Before you read that, I just want to recognize that we have, if our senator would like to come up, Senator DiDomenico is here. If he wants to come up, sit up here, and Representative McGonigal is here. And other members of the school committee are here. School committeeman in Almeida, school committeeman in Panarisi. Am I missing any other school committee members that are here? I want to thank you, Councilman Napolitano, Councilman Della Sola, Councilman McLaughlin. Anyone else that I miss? I want to thank you for being here. If you want to, Councilwoman DeFlorio. If any members of the City Council, Councilman Simonelli, if any members of the City Council, the school committee, or Senator Rep would like to sit up here, please do. If the City Clerk can read item number 2.
Mr. Mayor, before I do.
You want to make a motion, we take item number 2, 5 through 10?
2 and 5 through 10, since they're all relating to the 2.5.
I'll entertain a motion. Motion made. Do I have a second? Second, take items 2 through 2, and then 5 through 10 collectively. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The clerk, if you can read item 2 and then 5 through 10.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, items 2 and 5 through 10. Item number 2 is discussion of the appropriation request of $2,519,109 to the school department. Item number 5, that the school administration gives a breakdown of how and where the $2.5 million will be spent if allocated by the city. Item number 6, that the school administration give an itemized list of your budget before our next meeting, break it down line by line itemization.
If you can just read it a little slower for the residents who are watching this.
Break it down line by line itemization so that the committee members have it for red line purposes, and a copy of this should be made for each member. Item 7, to have the senator and representative appear before the committee to explain how this funding came about and if there will be additional funding for years to come. Item 8 is to have the mayor give an update on if he is going to give the funding to the schools, and if not, what the funding will be utilized for on the city side. Item 9 is that the school administration provides the reasons that they had come before the city for all supplemental monies that were allocated out of the city funds and given to the school funding in the past 5 years. And item 10, that the school administration provide an update to the list of all employees, their job title, position, and annual salary.
Okay, if I could have the floor for a second, is that okay? Thank you. So, as you all may recall, when we provided the schools with the additional $6.5 million above net school spending, when we did the budget presentation, in that presentation, it had said that there would be no supplemental increases during the year. My impression or my interpretation of my budget and my reasoning was if anything changed, Medicaid reimbursement monies, if the state gave us more money, those monies would have stayed with the city. It was my feeling when I think I had the conversation with Mr. Abramsky that $6.5 million was a number to get the schools through the next fiscal year. And that's where I think me and Mr. Abramsky just may differ a little bit, but I think as we've met in the last few days and talked it out, I think we both have come to an understanding that we both agree to disagree respectfully. As you all can imagine, to all those who are sitting in the audience or on TV, it's a daunting task to be able to budget a community and have enough money for all purposes, from police, fire, schools, public works, capital improvements, infrastructure improvements, because all our monies do mostly come from taxpayers. And being the chief elected officer, I am the person responsible for sending out the tax bill. So I try to balance what is needed with those people in mind, especially those who are struggling to stay in their homes, rent their homes, or pay their mortgages. Fast forward, so when the $2.5 million, we were told that we were getting additional $2.5 million in Chapter 70, that I know our senator worked very hard with Ways and Means and with his colleagues to make sure we got that additional money, and I thank him for that. My feeling was that that was just coming into the city. There were some meetings, some things that might have been said that I took to heart, that I didn't think it was necessary to say. I was never preventing a child from being educated or trying to hurt anyone, getting their job back, keeping their job. I feel in the 12 years, 11 plus years as mayor, or 25 years in elected office, that I've always tried to do in the best interest of everyone in the city, especially our children. So the issue is before you. I just want to I know that there's people want to know how I felt about it, but and remember in that calendar year, not the fiscal year, the calendar year, the city did contribute about $12–13 million. Now, that, from our stabilization account, from our city's, savings account, which is a lot of money. But the schools definitely needed the funds too, right? Being with the direct certifications and getting hurt with that, I understood that they needed those funds. But still, it's hard for a city to absorb all those costs and residents to absorb those costs. I will talk more. At this point, I want to open it up. Mr.
If the
Bremsky.
commission would indulge me, through the chair, I'd like to give a brief PowerPoint to maybe clarify how much the taxpayers actually are giving to the city. I did give a PowerPoint at the October 1st school committee. I've shortened it down so it's not lengthy.
Okay.
And then Mr. Shaw, at the end, will give a brief on what we would do with the $2.5 million and the personnel we would hire with that, if it's okay with the chairman and the commission.
So moved.
Motion made for Mr. Bremsky to make a presentation. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it.
Everybody on the commission all set? Get their copy?
Yes, I think so, right?
So at this time, obviously, this slide pertains to the taxpayers of Everett and what the burden is on the city taxpayers. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Mr. Delgado. The city's responsibility to the school department, without any chargebacks, is what the is $10,256,004. Now, at this point in time, we're not getting the Medicaid money, but we agreed not to get the Medicaid money, so there's no question on that. And at this present time, the $2.5 million is on the table. So the total additional state aid at this time, including the Medicaid not received by the school department, is $4,015,109. So without any chargebacks, and I'll explain what those are to everybody in a minute, on the taxpayer burden would be $6,204,895. But I'd really like to clarify that, especially with the chargebacks. So once again, as I just said, without the chargebacks, the total amount the taxpayers of Everett would be responsible for is $6,240,895. And the chargebacks are quite a lot. And just to go back over the history, and I'll do it briefly, the chargebacks came about in 1993 when ed reform came in, and the state pumped a lot of money into education. At that time, the auditor, the mayors, and the superintendent got together and agreed that certain charges would be, the city would be responsible for, and the money would be taken right off the top and never given to the school department to pay some city expenses because they're working on school department, and a lot of stuff on the health insurance and insurance sides. So the chargebacks for this year, fiscal year 19, come to $28,861. Now, I'll be brief, but these chargebacks include, we pay all the nurses that work for the Board of Health that work in the schools, pay 41% of the auditor's office, treasurer, purchasing, pay to use the stadium, pay for all our health insurance for our employees, $9.5 million. The retired teachers, a little bit over $2 million. the custodians and the clerical and the paraprofessionals that are in city retirement pay 1.7. The charter school tuition, we have about approximately almost 700 kids that go to charter school. We pay a little bit over $8.5 million. Workman's comp, and the total there is $25,058,861. That's the total. So the total amount that the taxpayers of Everett actually have to spend is the $31,299,756. It's not the $6.2 million. That's what actually comes back to us and we have in our budget. But what's actually the taxpayers are responsible for, and when Mr. Demas and the mayor and the assessors set the tax rate, they have to make sure that at least $31,299,756 is allotted, by the taxpayers ever for the school department for this fiscal year to cover all the costs. So I just want to make sure everybody understood that. So that's why I clarified that. Hopefully I clarified that this evening. It's not the 6.2, it's actually the almost $31.3 million. Now Mr. Shaw will go on and give a little bit about how we would use the $2.5 million if we were to receive that additional appropriation.
Thank you, Mr. Obremski. As I stated before a couple of times, one of the things we've been doing is meeting with the principals on a fairly consistent basis throughout the beginning of the year to see what the high critical needs are that we have currently in the school department. And what we would use the $2.5 million for right away is all in personnel. So I'd like to just quickly go school by school through this to tell you what personnel we would use for each school. At the Adams School, we'd have one special education teacher that we'd share with the Webster School Extension, a paraprofessional, one substitute teacher, because we have 8 classrooms to cover at the Adams School. And right now, currently, we know 2 teachers are going to be going on a maternity leave. At the English School, at grade 5, the class size averages, we have 3 classrooms, the average is 30 students. We'd like to add an additional 5th grade teacher, which would bring that average down to 23. We also need 2 special education teachers and 2 substitute teachers, because at the English School, we have 53 classrooms that we have to cover on a daily basis. And we know of 1 teacher currently going on a maternity leave. At the Cavarian School, there's 4 general ed classrooms.
What does that mean, you have 53 classrooms to cover?
There are
53 classrooms in the whole entire school?
53 teachers that if they were absent, someone would have to cover for them. It could be a gym teacher, it could be a 2nd grade teacher, a special education inclusion teacher, but someone has to cover for that person.
Oh,
You could not leave the position uncovered.
Okay.
There are some positions, like a guidance counselor, we wouldn't cover for a guidance counselor. So
So-
I just added all the positions in the school that needed to be covered on a daily basis.
So right now, if someone were to call out of the English school,
Yep.
that class would go, the teacher would have to
We
do both classes?
we have a couple of unassigned teachers at some of the schools, but 99% of them are covering maternity leaves. So what we're doing is breaking up classrooms, or we're pulling people from other positions and putting them in there, like a guidance counselor might have to cover a class or something else. So they're not doing their job function, they're
Gotcha.
doing something else.
Thank you.
The Cavarian School, we need 4 general education teachers, 1 at 2nd grade. You can see our class size is average of 27. 1 more teacher would bring it down to 22. Grade 4, 28, 28, and 29. Another teacher would bring those class sizes down to 21. At grade 5, you can see we're at 30 in one of the classes. Average class size of 29. Another teacher at grade 5 puts us at 22 per class. And at grade 7, we already have 4 of them, but 3 of them are over 30 at 31. So they average at 30. 1 more teacher will bring it down to 24. At the Cavarian, we have 50 classrooms that we have to cover on a daily basis, so we'd look for 2 substitute teachers. Just to let you know, we've planned for 3 teachers currently on maternity leave at the Cavarian School. We have 1 teacher on a long-term illness, and we also need a paraprofessional at the Cavarian. At the Lafayette School, we need a grade 3. The average class size is 28. We'd like another teacher there to reduce that to 23. Grade 4, we have 2 classrooms over 30. We'd like another teacher at grade 4, would bring it down to 23. Average class size. Grade 6, we already have 4 teachers, but 3 of them are at 30. So we'd like 1 more teacher there to put it at 24. We also need a special education teacher, an English language learner teacher at grade 3, 2 substitute teachers, because we have 60 positions to cover there, We have currently one teacher on a maternity leave, one teacher on a long-term illness, and we also need 3 paraprofessionals at that school, at the Lafayette School. The Parlin School. Parlin School, we have 4 classrooms of kindergarten, 27 students each. One more kindergarten teacher would bring that down to 22. Grade 5, class size average is obviously 32. One more teacher would bring it down to 24. Grade 7, one more teacher there at grade 7 would bring class sizes down to 23. And a grade 8 teacher, all the classes are 30 or more, and one more teacher there would bring it down to 24. We need 2 substitute teachers there. There's 55 classrooms to cover. A technology teacher, a phys ed teacher. We currently have 2 teachers on maternity leave. We know of another teacher going on maternity leave, and we have 1 teacher on a long-term illness at the Parlin School. The Webster School, we'd like another kindergarten teacher to bring those class sizes down to 19. They have 29 classrooms to cover, so we'd like 2 substitute teachers there. We have 4 teachers going on maternity leave at the Webster, and 1 teacher currently on a maternity leave. The Webster School Extension, we need a pre-K 4 teacher. Right now, the class sizes are at 24 in pre-K 4 there. We need 1 teacher for special education, which I noted at the Adams School that's going to share back and forth, and 1 substitute teacher for 9 classrooms to cover, and we know of 1 teacher going on a maternity leave at the Webster Extension. The Whittier School, we'd like 2 teachers, 1 at grade 3 and 1 at grade 5. That would put those class sizes at 20 or 21. 2 substitute teachers, because we have 42 classrooms to cover, and we have 2 teachers on maternity leave. At the high school, we have 150 classrooms to cover a day. We need 5 substitute teachers at the high school, 1 paraprofessional, 2 teachers are going on maternity leave, and we have 2 teachers currently on a long-term illness at the high school. Just, yeah, you know, that shouldn't have been, I took that off on the PowerPoint on the people who are watching at home and on the screen. We have those are not, they should not have been listed under the high school. We'd like those positions, they're on the next page, Mr. Mayor. They're district-wide employees, not at the high school. So just as a summary and to give you some totals there, the 16 general ed teachers would be $920,000. The 5 special education teachers would do $287,000. 2 specialist teachers, that was the phys ed and the technology teacher, $115,000. An English language learner teacher at $57,000. The 19 substitute teachers to cover all of those classes that we mentioned, which is a high number, but we have to cover those classes every single day regardless. There's no other choice that you have, would be $1,094,000. 6 paraprofessionals, and we do need 4 custodians and 2 clerical workers that are district-wide employees. They're going to not be at the high school. A total there would be $2,828,618. That's prorated if we hired them now, and with benefits as well. So that's what we would do with our $2.5 million if it was allotted to us. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shaw, just to, obviously there's a good number of teachers going on maternity leave.
Correct.
What happens when they return?
They have a 6-week maternity leave. They can extend it up to 8 weeks, and sometimes they need medical attention to extend it after that. But some of those are staggered, so we'd have 1 person covering a maternity leave, and then time it, hopefully at times, so that a second person. And those substitutes that I talk about, we move them from building to building sometimes to cover those as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to just grab any page here. I'm going to, Parlin School. I'm going to look at the figures set up at Parlin School.
Yep.
And I always like to see, make sure that 1 and 1 is always 2. So you're talking about the kindergarten having 27, 27, 27, and 27, 4 classrooms, 27. And you said that you needed 1 teacher, and you would reduce those class sizes down to 25.
22.
20, I'm sorry, 20.
22,
That's even better.
right.
How does that happen? 1 teacher for 4 classes, or am I not getting, is it 4 teachers?
Now it's 5 classes instead of 4. We want
We
1
Add a teacher divided, yeah.
We've got 4 there, we want to add 1, make it 5.
5 classrooms?
Teachers. That's
5
right.
classroom
5
teachers, right.
classrooms,
Okay.
5
So we take approximately 5 students out of each of those classrooms to create
To make up
the
the 5th classroom?
Right,
And
correct.
that's why you need 1 teacher. Okay, all the rest are the same, I would imagine? Okay, thank you.
And if I, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Oremski, you want to answer that?
No, Mr. Demus, could go.
Do you want to respond to Mr.
No, I was just going
Hanlon's
to go to
point?
that. Go ahead, Mr. Gibbons, sorry.
My only question on staffing from a practical matter, it's a large number of individuals to hire.
Yep.
Do you feel that you have the ability to hire this many people right now, given that we're at November 1st?
We put an ad on School Spring, which is the number one job sharing application for school teachers. We put that on there when we heard about the possibility of about $2.5 million coming, just so we can anticipate whether or not we could fill those positions. We've gotten a number of resumes on there. We haven't interviewed anybody on there, but we have 53 resumes currently, just for the general education pre-K to 6 teachers. So we do, there's a pool of applicants out there, yes.
If I can add to that.
Excuse me, Mr. Parker.
Sorry.
Mr. Abramsky next.
No, I'm all set.
Mr. Parker.
I just want to add to that. We currently have a pool of permanent substitutes
Correct.
currently that will move into classroom positions. So that'd be the first wave.
Right, those current permanent subs would move into regular positions, and then we'd add substitutes after that.
Also, we conducted a job fair in April and May of last year, so we've gotten resumes from there that we're holding on to that we would have hired if we had the money. So again, we're just waiting for this to clear, and we've got a pool of people to go to. And yet, also, we obviously cannot fill all of these positions because they come to more money than what we're talking about. So once we get the process going, we'll have to decide which positions we don't fill.
Thank you, that was going to be my next question.
So we're going to keep to the 2.5 million. All right.
Mr. Easy.
So, the high school, for example, I know we have 4 substitute teachers there and 2 clerical. Do you know where these clerical staff members
They're
are
not
going?
going.
They're not for the high school.
They're not
For district-wide,
That's correct.
right? Okay, so just from my knowledge at the high school, right, I know we lost a guidance counselor and a dean in the connection program, which is obviously one of our high needs population. Are there any plans to replace these people?
Not until we get the classrooms covered. Then we will look at those programs. Classrooms come first.
But there isn't a classroom at the high school or any school that's not being covered right now, correct? Every classroom have a teacher in there currently, correct?
Correct, oh, yeah.
So why wouldn't those individuals be put on this list for the high school? I'm just asking here.
Because the critical need right now was to reduce class sizes. That was our number one critical need, was to reduce class sizes. And to do that, we needed to hire all those first. Like Mr. Forrester said, after we are able to reduce class sizes and bring class size down, then we will certainly look at additional, because we know, we talked about guidance counselors. We were with the mayor the other day. We talked about guidance counselors when we were walking through Everett High School. The need for more guidance counselors at the high school so that we can help those students get ready, do what they need to do to get ready for college.
How many guidance counselors do we have at the high school now?
6. What do we get, 6? Normans? Yeah, 6.
Mr. Norman said 6.
6.
Okay. So it's my understanding that each counselor cannot have more than 250 students in the caseload, correct?
That's a recommendation, I believe, from
That's not a
NEASC, which is the
Yeah.
accreditation. Yeah, that's the recommendation.
Which is what we go by, based on our accreditation, yes? So do we want to comply with that or no?
Well, it's a recommendation by
We
NEASC.
want to comply with it, but you can't comply with it unless you have the money to do so. And the bottom line is, it's a recommendation. When it comes time for the accreditation of the high school, those are the things they're going to be looking at. We hope by that time, the funding situation gets straightened away and we can staff the school the proper way. And again, when it comes to staffing the high school or any other school, especially the high school, Mr. Norman knows best what it takes to run that building. He does it every day. So the bottom line is, we're going to try and fill these positions first and then go from there.
And Dr. Easy, obviously, to the commission, obviously, this is an estimate on what the salaries would be. So if the salaries come in lower, we may be able to add some of those positions that you're talking about, because this is an estimate.
If they come in lower, you'll come into the 2.5 million. You're right now at 2.8. So let's hope they come in lower.
2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. 2.8. if nobody has any further questions, I'd like to finish the presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, Mr.
Yeah.
Hamlin?
Well, I think we also have, part of 5 through 10, we invited the senator and the rep to speak on some of those, so let's just,
But back on the summary sheet, looking at it, and I'm looking at them, seeing that you need, because 43 teachers. You know, don't count the paraprofessionals, the custodians, or the clerical, just the teachers. And I had thought we were shy 35 teachers, and that's just my problem. But these additional teachers, we had laid off teachers, right? Are teachers laid off now?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any of those teachers coming back to fill these spots?
Some of them will, if they're available.
Oh, yeah, they probably got other
So
jobs.
we'll
Yeah.
we'll look at them.
Okay, so
And
mostly
those
we
that-
try to get them back, and then if not, you just go out
Right,
hiring,
correct.
okay, thank you.
Correct.
Dr. Easy.
Okay, so just for clarification, I know we actually hired additional 97 teachers last year. Are those teachers currently employed now in the school?
No.
No.
Oh, none of them are? None of the 97 that we brought back in fiscal year 18?
We're down 101 employees overall from last year right now. There's 72 of them would be in the teachers' bargaining unit, not all necessarily teachers, but 72 of those 101 would be in the teachers' bargaining unit. Dr. Easy, there may be some of them working, there may not. I'm honestly not sure out of that group, because some of them that they hired last year may have been a specialty teacher at the high school. Like I'm using this for example, maybe an earth science teacher or a chemistry that we couldn't find another. I'm honestly not sure if some of those are working or not working, only because of the specialty areas.
In response to your question,
Yeah.
any particular school where there's been a number of people laid off, and then we did callbacks, obviously, the principal decided, out of these 2 people, I want this one. Not every person do we want back. Lack of performance.
Correct.
So that's what we're looking at. We want teachers that'll do the job and continue to see our achievement and growth go the way it has been. So the principal makes a decision, I want A, I don't want B. So when you say all the laid off people, will they come back? No,
No,
because the principals don't want them all back.
Mr.
They
Foster,
want certain ones.
that wasn't my question. I was specifically referring to the 97 additional teachers that was hired last year, budget year.
Right.
Right? So I want to know if those 97 teachers are currently employed.
97 spots. 97 spots.
Not specific
No,
teachers. From-
no, they can't
okay.
be. Can't be. Because we have 105 less employees right now.
They're all teachers, 105 less, are they all teachers?
105 employees and 60...
72 of them would be in the teachers' bargaining unit.
I'm sorry, you said that.
72 would be in the teachers'
72
bargaining unit.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Yeah, 72.
72.
Okay, do we have any further questions? I'm sorry. Councilman, anything from, so I'm going to say this is still 2, because and is it pertaining to 5 through 10?
Yes.
Okay. You can ask a question if you like, anyone. It's all, I'm sorry, before you came, we took it, that's all right. It's okay.
I'd like to ask the senator a couple of questions, if we could.
Sure.
Have him before us.
Absolutely. Can we just just give him some room? Make a motion made and second to invite Senator DiDomenico before us. All in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it. My days at the city council are coming back. Good evening, Senator DiDomenico. If you could just state your name and title for the record.
Sal DiDomenico, State Senator, and resident, and parent.
That's a good trio, actually.
That's right.
Senator. My question to you is, this money that came in under the 2.5, how was it allocated? How was it,
How to come about?
yeah, and actually how it's going to be disseminated according to you and your colleagues? What did you think was happening with it?
Sure. So,
Two-part question.
2 parts, and I apologize for some people that have heard this over and over and over, because I've said this a few times, but it's good to explain it tonight as well in this setting. So, as we all know, the city has been underfunded by a change in our formula at the State House. It has hurt communities like Everett, Chelsea, particularly gateway communities. And because of this change, our city has not received the funding that we deserve. And our city has been looking for ways to offset that deficit. And I also want my chief of staff is here, Christy Ghetto-Young, who's been intimately involved in this, and we have been working for 3 years to get some sort of resolution on this issue, some sort of relief from the state. And we have been working with our colleagues and Representative McGonigal as well, but we have been pushing to let them know that the formula change has hurt us dramatically. Their claim was that all cities and towns are going to be held harmless once this formula is changed. We know that fact to be false. We see it, we know it. Our kids did not disappear, but we've been undercounted because our population does not qualify for certain state services, certain benefits. When the formula was changed, it went by who qualified for certain things like Mass Health and pretty much any state benefits that you could tie into. And our school-age population, our families sometimes don't qualify for those programs. And because of that, they're not counted as economic disadvantaged students. Again, the number didn't change of our students, but the funding changed. So
Because of the formula?
Because of the formula, and in their mind, these kids disappeared, but these kids are still in a classroom. So we've been working to try to find this, and I've talked to the governor personally on this. And the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we've had countless meetings with them, and they have pushed back on us many, many times.
What was the governor's thoughts on it?
The governor's department and his folks were in alignment, saying that we were held harmless. Now, we agree on a lot of things, we disagree on that. And finally, after a lot of pushing, a lot of advocacy, a lot of meetings, and a lot of arguments as well, and some of these meetings were very contentious, somebody listened, and they finally realized that our cities and towns were being hurt.
How many total?
11. And somebody was on the forefront of this and tried to push hard in the administration. They called us up and they said, we are going to finally listen to what you're saying, and we're going to put some additional funding into your schools. This is happening after the budget's already set as well. So this is where the discrepancy is falling in. You know, this all came about after the budget was completed. So the House does the governor does the budget first. The House does the budget, then we do our budget. The Senate budget, we included some things in there to help our communities that didn't make it through conference committee. We feel pretty confident the next session we'll be able to get some resolution on that, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. But this funding was brought to us because they finally realized there was a need.
Was it just brought to us, or was it brought to the whole 11?
11 communities, and 11 communities are putting big funding to the schools, or 10 so far. And
is it earmarked to the schools?
It is money that was, when the money was secured, it was intended to go to the schools. The discrepancy.
Was it intended, or was it earmarked?
There's no, you can't earmark that. So it's,
Okay.
it's Chapter 70 funding, which is by definition.
I just want you to explain it for
Yeah, Chapter
people that are
70 by
home.
definition is school funding. So the purpose of getting additional funding was to put it towards school funding, knowing that these school departments were shortchanged by the formula change previous to this point.
If I can just interject 1 second. So, Councilman McCann, when we presented the presentation of the school budget, and we said there would be no supplemental appropriations going to the schools, we took into consideration that there would possibly be a funding change from the Chapter 70 formula,
Sure.
which was great. We weren't expecting the $2.5 million that I know he fought vigorously to get. The Medicaid money.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask you all this probably in the next breath after I get through with the senators.
I just wanted to make sure the story stayed.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him just if he could finish.
I apologize. Go ahead.
The two questions, you're still on one.
What was the second question?
I forgot.
Yeah. So, well, the expectation is next year, once something is put into a funding formula, my expectation, and expectation of all these other communities that are getting this funding, and our colleagues in the State House as well, is that you can't take this money away next year. So our expectation is this money will be coming in year after year. Our other expectation is that we have the Foundation Budget Review Commission, which I've been talking about. This is a commission that was set up by the legislature. Experts from around the field of education, including some legislators as well, and they put out recommendations for all the cities and towns in terms of how we fund our schools. We know that Everett is underfunded by $19 million. That is an independent review, not from the school committee, not from the city council, not from any experts outside this group. This is a group of people that this is their job.
Are they state appointed?
They're
Or-
appointed by, yes, legislators have the
Okay.
appointing authority to put them in
Sure.
there. But these are people that have no, agenda. They're all out there to try to do the best for our kids. So Everett came back at $19 million underfunded. We know where the money can be found. We know how to bring us to that point. We thought we were very close to a resolution this past session.
That's through legislation,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
I sat in the conference committee where we had several recommendations that we were going to fund. 3 senators and 3 reps come together to try to come to a resolution. And I can say this publicly now that it didn't happen, but we were very close to securing additional $10 million for the city of Everett the first year. And
You can't elaborate how?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thought we would get that out of you.
That's
but no.
confidential, but it just common sense says that it was to fulfill a need in 4 areas that we always talk about. Healthcare being a big one, English language learners being another one. Just issues that we know are being underfunded. So $10 million was the amount that we were going to be receiving next fiscal year, and it was only going to increase after that.
Okay.
Now, that being said, too, the Speaker and the Senate President have made it a priority to take up that legislation at the beginning of the year. So it is our hope, and Representative McGonigal's hope, that we find some resolution there. If that's the case, and we can pass that legislation early in the session, then we won't have to be here anymore talking about this, because the state will fulfill their obligation in terms of funding the schools, not the $19 million, but eventually it will reach that $19 million in a few years. It'll keep building. But that $10 million up front would be a huge, huge deal for our community. And we wouldn't have to be here today, $10 million, and we could continue to do good things for our schools. But I'm fully confident that there's going to be some major changes in education policy and legislation coming forward. It's too important now, we've got a lot of attention. The breakdown of the conference committee got a lot of attention at the end of the session. It was the biggest thing that people talked about among legislators and the governor's office, and there's a lot of pressure now. There's a lot of our friends in the State House that want something resolved in this issue, because now it was brought to the forefront. Now we know, based off this independent commission, how much money is owed all of our cities and towns, not just Everett. So when you're hearing $19 million for Everett, in some communities it's 25, 30, some are $40 million
Sure.
funded. So because of that, we have a lot of new friends who have joined our army to get something done here. When you're talking those numbers, people respond.
Now, I think
Thank you,
second part of
Senator.
this was any of this portion of this funding earmarked for anything other than just what you just stated?
It's not an earmark. So
there's no earmark to it?
No, an earmark says.
You're going to do this with
has
it,
to be,
and this is going to be
allocated
what's
for this
happening.
purpose
Okay.
only.
So it was not
But-
earmarked?
but
It was just
Chapter
into
7
general fund?
No, not general fund.
Okay, where did it go?
No, this is Chapter 7. So this is school
Chapter 70
funding.
money.
So when this was approved by the legislature, the understanding that we had at that moment in time, and going forward as well, this is not something that we just talked about this year. Chapter 70 is school funding. There's no way around it in terms of how we look at it at the State House.
Thank you.
Did you want to now ask me questions?
I do. I'm thinking of them now, sir.
You're thinking? Because I can answer the question without you asking me it.
You can?
I can.
Really?
I'm pretty
Well,
good. I've
here's
been
the
around a long
question.
time.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, this is the question that I want to ask you. We have a mechanism in play it should have actually, for this 2.5, this should be coming from, I believe, the administration, your side, correct?
I would put it on the council calendar to transfer the Chapter 70
To wherever
increase
you
to the
choose.
city, to the school department.
Are we going to actually, my question is, are we going to actually be giving the funding to the schools, or are we going to actually be keeping it for the city?
Well, I'm hoping this independent review, this committee would
Well,
give me,
the
this is
reason
why
why
this is why this commission was set up, to talk about school finances.
The reason why I'm
And then I
asking,
would then,
Mr.
instead of me
Mayor.
arbitrarily just ruling myself,
Yeah, the
I
reason
would
why I'm
work with this
asking
group.
is,
you feel that we should.
I'm not saying one way or the other. I just want to know what your position is on it, actually.
My position?
Yeah.
My
'Cause
position.
you're the ultimate decision maker here on this. It comes from the
Well-
mayor, and it comes down.
I try to think that I do my best to work with all people involved. I am one vote to send the yes to myself, is that I would give the schools based upon, listen to Mr. Shaw, and the need of the schools, myself walking just the high school myself. I just had to see it on that day we did the mock interviews, realizing that they could use some more support. That I would vote in favor of giving the schools the $2.5 million. I will put it on the calendar, but I want to hear from all. But I just want to just let you know, I know when we gave the schools the $6.5 million, and really, you can deduct the additional 2.5, you can deduct the $1.9 million from Medicaid, and $1.5 million, so that's 2.5, that's 4. And really, I was giving the schools maybe $2.5 million, right? But the Medicaid money is technically city money, though the schools does the work for it. It is a city revenue, just like so many other revenues. So the impact that the taxpayers really would have felt, because for year after year, I've been gracious enough to give all the Medicaid money. We have been gracious enough to give all the Medicaid money.
You send it, we approve it. yeah?
Right.
Did I answer a question for you?
Sure.
Oh.
No, so, I mean, that's, so as we did the presentation, when I was doing the $6.5 million, I was just just trying, like I said earlier, just trying to balance a budget, right? There are a lot of people at home probably right now that would want to see a reduction, right? The good news is that we'll be announcing very shortly that the city's got certified $10 million in free cash due to sound fiscal management from myself and my administration. So I will be looking to offset some taxes with that money, which is the most I think the city has been recognized to have free cash in a long, long time. So that actually factors into my. So I'm going to offer some relief to the taxpayers. But as you know, as we use those revenues to offset taxes, we create bigger holes the year after.
Yeah,
And I'm hoping that the entire Encore Boston Harbor opens up, we get our license, we get through suitability, that happens, and then all the other planned hotels and things happen around, so we won't be, and what Sal is working to do with the legislature, will be in a great fiscal position in the years to come. But to answer your question,
The 2.5?
2.5, I'm hoping this commission says to me that they all feel strongly that we should, and then that will be on the next council calendar. But because the charter or admin code specifies this group is School Finance Review Commission, it solely isn't just my, domain, because I know lots of you get questions and comments from taxpayers. So I wanted to keep it an open process. And I've
Mr.
heard.
Chairman, I call for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester. But I have Councilman DePiero that wants to ask the question. You good? Are you, okay.
Senator, you mentioned working with those other cities and towns that are affected like us. To your knowledge, did any of them go above net school spending to an extent that we did?
I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that. I know that it is not uncommon for communities to do it, but I don't know if those in particular. I'm not sure.
Okay. And Mr. Mayor, congratulations on that free cash number, because there is a common misconception, at least with a small group, that the city's broke, and it's definitely not broke. So
No.
thank you.
It's all the capacity we want to raise from our residents, you know, that's what it comes down to. Mr. Demas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, given the events that have transpired over the past few days, and Councilor DePiero, I do want to echo your sentiments that, you know, the city is in a very sound financial position. But again, you know, it's always a balance. You know, the city can afford a lot of things now based upon new events that have happened. But at the end of the day, we can't forget that we have taxpayers. And it's a matter of, we also have to consider what can the taxpayers actually afford as well. You know, it would be great if we could do absolutely everything that we wanted to do here in the city and do it immediately. But we always have to consider the burden on the taxpayers themselves in these tax bills that go out. But that being said, we are very financially sound. Free cash was just certified at the highest amount the city's ever had. And hopefully we'll be able to use some of that to mitigate potential tax increases and build up stabilization. One of the things that I've focused on since I've gotten here is, you know, my philosophy's always been continual improvement. We can always do better. And one of the areas where I think that we're trying to do better is through the budgetary process. And, you know, if we can address our budgetary needs at the time during the budget process, that's always a better thing. You know, I'm always going to say, I said it from day one, and I'll say it as long as I'm here, you know, we never really want to use reserves, use our savings to fund operations. And I think the city's done a great job in between your administration and the school department getting away from some of the events that have transpired over the last, you know, 16 months, if you will. But that being said, based upon, you know, the constructive meetings that we had, there's really no question on the floor, because this board actually is only advisory, or this commission's only advisory. I would make a recommendation, make a motion that this committee recommend to you to, as the chief executive officer, to push this matter to the city council for approval.
Sheila?
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Wagonax?
One of the things with overcrowding in classrooms, which Mr. Shaw spoke to, is that it affects student learning. And as you probably, I'm sure you all have heard, that over the last several years, that the superintendent, Mr. Obremski, or even Dr. Stella before Mr. Shaw, have talked about the growth in the student achievement and the growth in the overall school achievement by classrooms, by schools, and by the entire district. I think it's important that if we utilize these funds to help reduce class size, we're going to continue to maintain and improve the achievement of our students in their growth while they're participating or enrolled in the Everett Public Schools. And I think it's really important to do that because it will help as the decrease in class size. We will maintain that achievement level. We won't be viewed by the state as being underperforming. When when districts start to underperform, the state can come in and lift the cap to charter schools. And we know that that's one of the big issues right now with our funding of well over $8 million. So I think it's imperative, and I ask you to, and I will make a recommendation that you approve this $2.5 million to help with keeping class sizes down so we can maintain the growth and the achievement of our economically disadvantaged and all our students within the city of Everett, because then Everett will be one of those urban districts where people want to come to live with their families. And I've heard you speak several times about growth in the city and bringing more people into the city. And that's just going to keep this city vibrant, and it's going to keep it on a positive track. and I think it's only going to be good for the entire city, and I will make that as my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Elo. I have Mr. Parker next.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just on item 7, it finishes by reading additional funding for years to come. And the state senator mentioned the change, the potential change in the foundation budget formula. That formula was established in 1993 on the Ed Reed form. Okay, that was the result of a lawsuit, City of Brockton, the Hancock case. So there's other schools, committees, other cities and towns out there that are watching what happens over the next year because they're ready to mobilize and sue again. Again, Brockton leading the charge. Worcester, I've spoken to colleagues in New Bedford and Leominster and Fall River, and we even expressed participate in that lawsuit too. So it's going to come that way, whether it's through the legislature or, again, which is the quickest route, or through a lawsuit. So, as one of the proponents of the foundation budget change, any advice, any thoughts about a lawsuit?
Yes, it is a good question, having a state senator say sue the state. Yeah.
I mean, how does it help you or not help you?
So the threat of a lawsuit does have some effect, but not as much as you would think. There are some folks that have used that as ammunition to try to get some changes here, but it's not a groundswell of support. The lawsuit itself is a good start, but I believe that it would have to come through legislation. I don't believe that would make any big changes through a lawsuit at this point. There's not a critical mass of folks that are ready to do this. There's a few that are speaking very loudly on it, but most of the communities are waiting for this to happen. And now that we have some positive information and some good momentum built up from the last session, I think this is the way to go through legislation.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. One other thing I wanted to address with Mr. William McKinnon's question as well. This is a two-prong approach. The reason we're in this spot is because the state took away the free reduced lunch forms. That is how we counted our children. And because communities like Everett did such a good job of collecting that information, and other bigger communities did not, the bigger communities won out. And that's why the change was made, because the numbers weren't coming in at the number that they knew.
What were the
they had.
numbers? There was 11 communities that just received
Well,
funding,
no,
and the rest did
it was
not?
the entire state.
Okay.
So the bigger cities and towns were not doing a good job
Okay.
collecting that information. And because of that, the bigger communities were able to prompt this change, where the state benefits programs would take precedence over the farms. So the farms are no longer counted as going into how our student population is counted for funding.
I recall this at a committee meeting.
Right. So
Mr. Senator.
we actually, this is a two-prong approach. The Foundation Budget Review Commission recommendations are one approach. The other approach is to add the criteria back to have the lunch forms counted.
And that's, I know you were working on that.
Working on that too. So that was part of the conference committee as well. So we thought at one point we had both. We had both, which the change in the formula and the forms, we thought. And that would have been a significant increase for our schools in Everett. But one of those two things happening in the short term will bring some relief to this community. That will bring upwards of $4 to $5 million if we have the right number of students being counted on the lunch forms. And maybe more, 7 million. So it would be, any one of those changes would be a big win for our city. So, and I believe that we'll be able to at least accomplish one of those next session.
Well, it's on the right track.
We're on track, and I believe that we're going to be able to get things going. So, I do.
Thank you for that.
Just to echo what the senator said, our teachers and our guidance counselors did a wonderful job of collecting those lunch forms, and that's why we were getting a lot of state aid. We basically got punished for doing a good job, and the other communities didn't. It was mostly Boston. Boston did not want to collect. I was at the meeting at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on July 5th. I think it was 3 summers ago.
That was before Mayor Walsh was mayor, though.
I'm sorry?
That was before Mayor Walsh was mayor.
I didn't say who, right, but it was basically because they didn't want to collect the lunch forms. and Department of Ed went along with it. But our teachers and our guidance counselors, most of our guidance counselors, they spent the first month of school making sure every kid got one in.
Sure.
And Dr. Stella stayed on top of that. He did a great job putting that in the computer system for all those years, and Mr. Shaw when he took over.
I have Councilman Hanlon next. To answer your question, I have Councilman DePiero next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very brief, what's the plan in place for a funding mechanism for any unexpected expenditures, such as a new contract negotiated, any settlements? Is there a plan for that?
Over the last few days, we have had conversations with Mr. Demas and the mayor and the chief of staff, Kevin O'Donnell, in regards to that. And based on where we are financially right now, negotiating with the teachers, we believe we can cover that with the 2.5. You use the 2.5 for the, we'll use that, the 2.5, if it's approved by the council to hire these teachers, we believe we can cover that out of our
You
existing.
can cover it with what you
Yeah.
have and not any more
Yeah,
supplemental
we talked about that
appropriations?
with the mayor and Mr. Demas and Kevin O'Donnell over the last couple of days.
Okay, thank you.
You want to, with your revolving accounts, right, of course, you want to.
Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, 'cause I think you might, I think I see some,
Yeah.
you want
so-
to, yeah, just maybe elaborate a little bit without,
So, at this point in time, we received some grants that are covering the cost of some of our paraprofessionals, not a lot. So in that account, we're running a little bit ahead, a little bit, not a lot.
Right.
A couple $100,000, but we believe out of the tuition to the Devons, some of our homeless revolving account, in the cafeteria account, which you have to use for certain purposes. A lot of people don't understand, you can't just use it for everything.
Right.
We would obviously charge some electricity and possibly some gas, and some of the custodial and housework at time to clean the calves back, and obviously reverse the money out of those accounts to cover any potential raise that the staff gets, not just the teachers, but all the staff, because there isn't anybody that received a raise this year so far.
First of all, knowing the situation we were in this year, so far we've received about $5 million in grants. The only reason why we're able to survive is because our people have written grants, and we've been able to take people off of our payroll onto those grants so that we can try and create a balance so that if we negotiate a raise, we'll be able to take care of it. But we couldn't operate unless we got those $5 million in grant money, and we're looking for even more. But that's the way we're creating the surplus, is by taking existing people off of our payroll and putting them onto the grants. And that's where we're picking up a lot of money. A lot of money.
Just one more question
Councilman Tahira.
for the senator. Being that there's only 8 months left in the fiscal year, are you pretty confident that this formula can get changed prior to FY20? So we're not in the same situation?
The formula is changed. It probably will take effect in the following fiscal year.
Okay. It will not take effect this next.
Right. This fiscal year coming up, it would be
2019.
difficult to get that all, because the formula change has to be
Takes too
adjusted and everything has to be put into a new formula. So
so not before June of 19 for 20?
if we had passed the last conference committee legislation, it would have been ready for next
boy.
FY year, next year. But this right now is a work in progress, so we're going to probably have to, it will take effect the next fiscal year. Not this
21.
20, it's 2 years.
21, fiscal 21.
21.
21?
Fiscal-
Thank
okay.
you.
Which would mean a year from this June.
Let's call for the question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, before we call for
Mr.
the
Forrest, yeah.
question, I just want to, make a couple of comments that, since you've been mayor, we've had a good relationship. And we've been able to work together, get things done. We've done a lot together in terms of moving the school system forward. The people in the school department have worked hard. That's why, as Mr. Ehlers says, we get the recognition we do. For a community, like type of communities, we outshine them all because we work at it. It's hard. And I want to see that relationship continue on that level. This is not a situation of being anti or against and for.
Right.
We don't need comments on the side and things showing up in newspapers and whatever else. People have questions they want to ask, then fine, talk to us. And the whole idea to this whole operation of this city is really to make the schools grow. contrary to what you think about buses and Broadway and this. It's to make the schools grow so the city's a place people want to live, and it keeps the city safe. And that's what we've worked on for the last 10 years, to try and get it that way. And we're at a good place. Everett schools are Everett's pride. Just imagine in a city like this that our band is the New England champions. Your football team is. Your STEM team is, they're national champions. This is Little Everett. So a lot of good things have gone on here. A lot of good people working to make it happen. And I want to keep it on that road. And I don't want to see this bickering back and forth go. Because, I'm not the type of person that's going to sit back and take it.
Well, neither am I, as you know.
The bottom line is, you get it, listen. Well, listen, you have been taught by me over the years. And, it's not good to fool with the teacher. But anyway, so the
You're a wonderful superintendent, and we love you.
And listen, we work together and keep a good thing going. That's all. I just don't want to see it deteriorate. We had good conversations the past couple of days on what we hope to do in the next few years for the schools. And
Absolutely.
we got to see if we can implement those things.
It's always been my plan to support all good causes in our community. I always, as you can imagine, I have a lot of love for children as much as you do, and for the city as you do, as some others had here tonight. I think there's only one really true adversary in the city that continues to fill the city with garbage. And hopefully we'll all realize that sooner than later. But my vision for the city, from bringing in a developer who's generating 5,000 jobs for my residents of my city, to creating many modes of transportation for our residents to get in and out of Boston, to cleaning a Superfund site with $70–80 million of private monies, to that site alone and what's going to happen in that Lower Broadway area, how it transcends into Route 16, into GE Parkland. We are no longer a small city. We are a big city. Where I want to take it is to a place that I don't think people can really wrap their arms around. They will see it in the next few years. And then we won't have these problems again, all these conversations. But my true passion is to make sure that people can live here, that people who are check to check, who are struggling, people of immigrant backgrounds, people who've been here for 100 years, that they can stay, and that's how I'll do some zoning changes, transportation improvements, because most of our kids are living in rooms with makeshift kitchens, makeshift bathrooms. I've seen it. I've gone to properties, to calls with my police, ISD department. You can't imagine, and I don't displace families. We make the property safe, and we make sure we keep them there, because I don't want to create homelessness issues. It's a daunting task what I deal with on a daily basis. And so I just, I'm trying to be as conservative as possible, but also be very left when it comes to making sure that people have what they need to. So, but I appreciate what you started to say, that we've worked together great. I think we have. I think I can look around and see the many principals, vice principals, teachers, paras, staffers, and say to all of them that I think one time or another I've been in their classroom, I talked to them, and I support them as they support me, and I want to continue that relationship.
The whole reason we're here, Mr. Chairman, is to raise the families out of the situations you just talked about.
Right.
And that's what we do every day. And when the young people grow and leave us, they go on and do great things.
Right.
And that's what I want to see.
Absolutely.
That's what we spend
We
doing
all feel.
every day. People who have nothing come to us. People who have a lot come to us. We
Yep.
have students smarter than everyone in this room.
Sure.
And we have students that are reaching out for help every single day. But that's what we do, is service them. If we do that, the city will grow. It'll become something. The day we stop doing it, you have no city. You have no city.
No, I don't think anyone here ever intended, in this group, I know my administration or the members of the city council, it's the state rep, the senator, had any intentions of never supporting the schools. I think we always support the schools. It's just sometimes at what cost can we support any department? And I think,
Mr. Mayor, I've asked you to just come along with us, hang on to our coaches, receive all the benefits. Hey, when we do well, you do well. It's as simple as that, right? You come along with us.
I know.
Come for the ride.
I don't have a 5-year contract that gets rolled over every 5 years.
You got a 4-year contract. You got a 4-year deal. Yeah.
I have a tougher deal.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, come along for the ride. It'll help you get reelected.
I want to thank you for your support. Any other comments? We've talked about, do we go through all of them? All good? So a motion is made for this committee to refer to the mayor to put on the next council calendar, $2.5 million transfer. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. I have a motion made, second to adjourn on adjournment.
Wait a minute.
So we do have items 3 and 4 on the, 2, 3, and 4 on the calendar, 3 and 4 on the calendar. Why don't we just,
Can I make a motion that we table the remaining items till the next meeting to give the school department more time? I'm sorry, I'm not on the mic, I'm sorry. I make a motion that we table the remaining items until the next meeting to give the school department more time to prepare the information the commission needs.
motion made, second to table items 3 and 4.
Mr. Chairman, just one.
On the motion,
One
Councilor
request
DePiero.
for the next meeting, if you could provide the individuals that were hired with the money, if it gets approved and so forth, at the next commission meeting, that's all.
Yes, we'll give you an update on the hirers.
Thank you.
Motion made, second to table items 3 and 4 to the next meeting, the School Finance Review Commission. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion made to adjourn. You have adjourned.